Breaking Bridget. The Maui fires.
First of all, these are tragic and horrible, and it's one of the worst natural disasters in American history, and definitely the worst wildfire death count. And there's still so many people missing, many of them children. It doesn't feel like it's getting the media coverage that it deserves. I don't know if it's because it's Hawaii or what, but it's weird. It feels like it should be getting, like it should still be dominating the headlines, and it's not. And the other thing that drives me insane is that everybody in power, leaders, and people with an agenda will try and say, oh, this is climate change. There is some truth to climate change aggravating a lot of these things. However, usually, and in the case of these Maui fires, as there is an investigation into whether or not the Hawaiian Electrical Company is responsible for this, as they were in the Paradise Fire in California and many of the fires that start, or it will just deflect from the arsonists who are starting fire, or it will deflect as they did in Greece. And they were like, oh, it's climate change. And then it was like hundreds of fires that were set. And now they look ridiculous having to walk that back, saying it just started on its own. Or it's people who are homeless and vagrants who start fires because they're cooking food or they're living in conditions that are horrible, and a fire will start because of wherever they're living. They're just keeping warm or whatever. Our grid and infrastructure is fucked in this country. Again, nation in decline. There are actual things that we could be working on as Americans and focusing on, and instead, the powers that be will be like, oh, it's climate change. We better not let people make pizza with wood-burning stoves in New York City. Or we better, what's the newest one this week? They were talking about fucking ceiling fans. And you have grids who have monopolies, power companies with monopolies, who are very rarely held accountable and hide evidence of their own city infrastructure. They knew that these power lines could be downed. They knew that when they were down, there was no switch to turn them off, so it would still be live wires when the power went down. There was lots of reports that said they would start fires and that they were a hazard. Not to mention the complete incompetence of the freaking leaders who didn't sound the alarm for the reason that they thought people would run in the wrong direction. Which seems like a stupid excuse, and one lane in, one lane out, not letting basically the people who survived were the people who disobeyed the freaking leader. It is like, this shit makes me fucking crazy, because the thing that gets the headlines in the news is climate change. Not that our leaders are incompetent, not that there's a monopoly in our energy, and many places where there's one party and in charge and one or two power grids that are allowed to give service to people. Not that our infrastructure is garbage and needs updating. None of these people are held accountable, not the leaders. They'll pay some lip service, they'll pay a little bit of money, but they're not, this is not what's dominating the headlines, and it absolutely should be. What happened to our journalists too, who are supposed to be holding these people accountable and speaking truth to power, and not writing these fucking WEF headlines that are like, oh, it's climate change, you guys can't eat meat because the grid started a wildfire in Hawaii. It is the ultimate, like, get out of jail free card that all of these people who should be helping solve the problems of monopolies in energy, incompetent leaders, kickbacks to energy companies, failing infrastructure, so that they can fucking just go, oh, it's climate change. It enrages me how climate change is just used to just shield everyone from taking any kind of responsibility whatsoever. And the other thing that's such bullshit in our society is that you have all these people who are like, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. This is what all of the people, the little people here, you've got to like take care of yourself and pull yourself up. And none of these people take responsibility for shit. None of the leaders, none of the corporations, they're all so corrupt and in bed with each other and giving self-enriching and only caring about their shareholders, that they don't give a shit that like an entire fucking town burned down with people in it and it was things that they had been warned about and they could have prevented. And it makes this like shit makes me insane. And then they're like, climate change. It is look, climate change, I'm not a climate change denier. Climate change is not the excuse that all of these people get to use. Like, I can't even read about the Hawaii fires because of the way that it's framed. And it's always like, oh, we have this climate emergency. No, the emergency is that we have incompetent leaders with no vision and failing infrastructure and corporations who get away with this shit because they're in the fucking pockets of the politicians are in the pockets of these fucking corporations. That's the problem. It is not capitalism. This is crony capitalism. This is monopolies that need to be broken up so people have options and people are held accountable. And no, instead it's just self-enriching, aging senators raping the republic and not doing shit to help the actual people who need help. And then they're like, oh, climate change. Fuck off with that shit. Everybody needs to call these people out. You have power. You, individual person watching this, you have power. Do not forget that. It is true what they say in V for Vendetta.
People should not be afraid of their governments.
The government should be afraid of their people. And it is not us versus them. It is us. If it's us versus them at all, it's us versus our stupid leaders and these corporations who all have us by the balls. So start pointing the finger at like governors who support all these policies that let these companies get away with everything.